All right, welcome back, baseball fans. Another elimination video. Today we're eliminating the Las Vegas Rivieras expansion team out in the Mountain Division. They won the division. This division's often a toss-up year to year. A lot of turnover within it. A lot of times teams go worst to first, first to worst. Vegas won the division 2 years ago. They were in last place last year. They won it this year. They were only a half game better than the other three opponents at the All-Star break, so it's really a toss-up. Vegas, of course, has built their team around defense, so you're not going to see that any of these statistical looks at hitting and pitching. But let's take a dive in. They have some fame here. Tommy Davis led the National League in hitting this year. Slumped in the playoffs, but he qualified for the batting title. He's been with Vegas the whole time we've had this expansion team. Good for him to go out with a batting title. Also had 5 stolen bases. Ken Berry, he's been in center field with 302, that 1-0 defense. They added Greg Gross this year, led the club in at-bats, I believe. Yeah, lefties, righties, doesn't really matter. Good, decent corner guy. No power, but he had 272. Hey, look, Aurelio Rodriguez, it's 268. That's fantastic for a 222 hitter. Tim Cullen, 257. Beniquez, these are all sort of around where they were supposed to be. Even Ed Brinkman, a 203 hitter, 225. You have to go all the way down to the bottom to find 2 guys who disappointed. Barry Foote hit 218. But unfortunately, Wes Parker, in a full season, should have hit like 277, hit 199, just 2 home runs. It was his last year, so that's maybe a good thing. Altogether, this team scored 166 runs, gave up 142, indicating that they really, lost too many close games. They just didn't have enough punch in this offense. Batting average is not too bad. For the timeline, all things considered, 2-7, there's a lot of teams worse than that, particularly some playoff teams, like the Giants, for instance, and the Red Sox right below that, which is a surprise. Batting average isn't good enough, though. You need home runs or stolen bases or something to move the runners along. As far as the pitching, it was a success. 2 of their pitchers were all-stars. Jim Lonborg, 8-2, 240 earned run average, a runner-up in the Cy Young voting. It was Steve Carlton and Lonborg who would eventually be teammates. 3 complete games, 101 innings, a 120 whip to go with a 240 ERA. And then there's Max Leon. His story is rather interesting. He was on the street, and the rosters were getting finalized. Vegas decided they would move Pat Jarvis from closer to setup guy, and they picked up Max Leon. And talk about a waiver, an undrafted free agent, 10 saves. He lost 2 games, but only gave up 2 runs. One of the 2 losses, the final run of their season, that extra inning loss to the Cubs. 113 ERA, 69-cent whip. He turns into a pumpkin at midnight. They have Danny Frizella, former Met, always good as a righty who gets lefties out. Pat Jarvis had a nice job in long relief. Bullpen was great. Ken Bretz and Fryman underachieved slightly. Blue Moon Odom was probably used enough as the number 4 starter. That's 4 really quality starting pitchers to go with that great defense. Just didn't work out enough to get enough W's once the competition got going. So let's take a look now at Las Vegas's stack of cards. There's going to be 12 guys coming back. They'll be from all over baseball. There's no particular farm system they rob from. It's all over. You'll see players. Ron Hodges is coming back as a platoon catcher, was a Met. He'll platoon with Barry Foote again. And that's a pretty good platoon, frankly. Both hit about 260 combined. That might hit 15 home runs. Tommy Davis is bringing it back with this card. Hey, he won a batting title with it. And he hits 306. So he seriously overachieved with this card. But we like the righties who hit righties better than lefties. A B stealer who's a 9 runner, and a B hit and runner. Really interesting. Power versus righties, not against lefties. DH practically. Here's Ken Boswell. Sometimes he can hit lefties, sometimes he can't. It's weird. He can play second and third. Sometimes he has power, sometimes he doesn't. One constant are the walks. The walks make this guy workable as a B with a B hit and running. Here's a 1E13 A-Rod coming back. Hey, over here it's pretty good. He's about 260 hitter there. This is a problem. And oftentimes he didn't even start versus right-handed pitching because he knew the offense was bad. Out in the outfield. We'll start with Gray Gross in left field. This is his last full season for the Astros. You see the 540 plate appearances with just 24 extra base hits. That would plague him, and no one wanted to have him play every day because there's not enough punch. But a great pinch hitter. Did it for another decade, all the way through to the early mid-80s. Had some 322, 303, 299 seasons in there, 333 season in there. So great hitter to have in Strat. Benitez was with Boston with this card. Boston wouldn't need him anymore. Ace stealer, hits lefties very well. 3 in center, he'll get better actually and be more versatile. Here's Mike Anderson, arguably his best card. Right fielder as a 1, crushes lefties, homers at least. Not so much against righties, but that's good enough to start. It's like a 240 hitter, but again, the defense will keep these guys in the lineup a lot more often. The pitching, we've lost some guys. We'll have to figure out what to do. Ken Brett will emerge as the new ace with a really great card. His season ended in disappointment, losing to the Cubs. That's a great card as a starter 8. Jarvis in the bullpen. Righty who gets righties out, sorta. Gives up a lot of homers, as do Brave pitchers, but he's an expo here. With a 323 earned run average. Fred Sherman is next. Fred's had better cards, but as a lefty, he's often pitching in this time period for the Astros. 4.13 ERA. We like to keep our lefties into the league until the wheels fall off, as we like to say. And here's that Max Leon card that closed. I mean, over here it's really fantastic. Stay away from the home run. Over here, not many extra base hits. Relief 3. I'm not saying he should be a closer, but it worked. Vegas, you put a great defense behind him, it'll help. But good enough to close out games. 264 earned run average. And that's 8 hitters and 4 pitchers for Vegas. But they've got some valuable pitching that's going away and a couple decent hitters that are going away too. So every time an expansion team closes out their season, there's lots of question marks. Can they come back and do this next year? We won't know until we see what the extra player cards look like in 73, 4, 5, and 6. So with that, let's take a look at those 8 players from 72 and see who they want to keep, put on waivers, and retire. All right, baseball fans, we're looking at the first of the 8 players, Ken Berry, who was an outstanding defensive player for the White Sox throughout the decade of the 60s, then the Angels. Gold Gloves in 70 and 72. 73, he's still hitting 284. His OPS comes down just slightly. It's hard to imagine the defense. Once you're a great defensive outfielder, it's hard to fall from like a 1 to a 4. So I'm assuming he's still great defensively. And with the batting average that good, I'm sure they'll bring him back with his 73 campaign. So we're going to keep Ken Berry. So first column for guys we want to keep, we give them $10,000 or tokens or units, whatever. 10,000 for Ken Berry. Next player is Ed Brinkman, and this is always a fascinating look that is almost shocking here. See Ed's rather remarkable tribute, you could say. In 1972, He's top 10. He's 9th in MVP voting. We know the Tigers won the East because Baltimore faded. But Easy Ed Brinkman, 203, 259, 279, 538. That's not a misprint. 9th in MVP voting as a 1 EH shortstop with that Gold Glove. My goodness. That also got him to the All-Star game the following year where he improved his batting average. He's not going anywhere. This is the formula. I don't know if he's going to be a 1 or a 2 at this point. It'd be rather disappointing if he's not a 1 anymore. I don't think he is. I think he's going to be a 2. But in any event, Brinkman's coming back. Next up is Tim Cullen. I think he got a World Series ring. I wonder if he played in the World Series of 72. So he was a Washington Senator, and then he played with Oakland in that season. And his career's over. So we know he's retired. We can just retire him. But did he play in that postseason? He did not play in the World Series. He played in the ALCS. He got an at-bat, folks. He got an at-bat. 2 games, he's probably a defensive replacement the other time. So Tim Cullen's career's over. We put him in column 3, give him $1 and a plane ticket and a bus fare. Next up, Wes Parker. Oh boy, Wes had a really bad year. Leaving LA, showing up in Vegas for their 72 season, and his career's over. And really, 71 and 72 are about the same, really. Got those Gold Gloves. I mean, you win a Gold Glove at 279, and then you're done. And, you know, Bill Buckner, Steve Garvey, those guys had a lot to do with that. There was no place for Wes anymore. I mean, his best power years were probably 69 with 13 homers. 70, he has the 47 doubles and the 319 average. That's probably the best OPS. Yeah, 458 slugging, but went into broadcasting. It's good for Wes. But he's retired. Now they have 4 pitchers. So they're pretty good. I think you're going to like some of these guys here. First one's Jim Lonborg. So, what an interesting career this guy had. He got to start in the 60s with a huge year in here. 22-game winner and the Cy Young in 67 for Boston. Doesn't miss any time. Misses some starts. You know, he only has 34 innings in 70, for instance. Kind of goes out in the wilderness a little bit, trying to figure stuff out. His ERA is all over the place. Then he comes back in 72, leaving Fenway for County Stadium, Milwaukee. Puts it all together this fine season we just played. Then the Phillies went out and got him, and he'll be eventually on some Philly playoff teams. However, bad news for Philly, Vegas has the rights to him, and I don't think you let the rights go. He's a keeper. You want to keep him away from a team that routinely won the National League East, the Phillies. So you can put the answering machine on, and the Phillies will keep leaving messages. And yeah, if you get a really enticing offer from the Phillies, you'll trade him. But otherwise, you're going to hold on to him. That's the only chance these expansion teams have. Next up, Woody, as we like to call him. Woody Fryman. And Woody held. The only Woodies in baseball. Now you know. Woody Fryman has a fine career all over the place. Another great candidate for an expansion team when a player travels around a lot. We like to say, well, instead of traveling around a lot, why not just stick with an expansion team for a nice chunk of change? And Woody will. He'll stay with Vegas the entire timeline, all the way through his Montreal years when he's a reliever. The only thing to determine if he's still starting, and the answer is probably. He mostly starts through here with the Tigers and the Expos. It's got one season. He's got an all-star with the Expos here. So this is really good news. To see an expansion team have 4 guys they want to keep already is excellent. Next up, Blue Moon Odom. This might work out perfectly for this team. These guys could be waiver guys. Blue Moon. You saw me standing alone, I like to say. There you go. Pitched all the way to 76. But his performance is kind of shaky from here on out. We had this 69 card on the A's, and it helped them win a World Series a long time ago with that card, 15-6. Now he's moved on to different cards. 72 card, this is the one we just played. And in 73, it's not a good year. Then in 74, there's some arm problems, pitches 87 innings, still kind of mediocre. 75 is really bad. And 76 is done. So, pretty simply put, you put the guy on waivers, and he's only 28, but it just doesn't work out anymore. So, he's got to have a card with Oakland. He will, in 150 innings. Let's go check it out, though. We have to go to the roster sheet for the A's and make sure they printed his card. John Odom, right there. So he gets waivers pitching for the Oakland A's in 73. This is actually going to perfect form. And the last player is Danny Frisella. Actually, Frisella will be sought after. He's actually a very effective pitcher for a reasonable amount of time. Just about a decade there in baseball. Has this knack of getting lefties out. As a righty, that's very valuable. Has sub-2 ERAs once here. The 70 and the 71 card and the 72 card were all good. 73 to 76, he's in baseball every year. 75, he's got a nice 313. 76, 274. All right, question 1, you want to keep him. We have 4 guys we'd rather keep. He could be a 5th keeper. Ultimately, though, you're going to want to trade him as a keeper or put him on waivers. So, simply, can you get waivers? He's got to have a card for the 73 Braves. If he doesn't, then you have to keep and trade him or retire him. You certainly don't want to retire a guy who still has 4 years left, but if you don't have a card for 73, and the card has to be selected in one of the 3 other years, you can't put him on the waiver list. So, he needs an Atlanta card of 73. Let's take a look at that. And he's got one. So they made a Frisella card for 73. That makes it easy to figure out. What we'll do is this. We will put him on waivers, and then I'm going to just as a reminder, we could trade this guy, and another team might push him as a keeper because one of the other years, this is on waivers with a 73 card. But if you trade the guy, another team might want to keep him because they like either 74 or 75 or 76 one of those other seasons. So, Vegas, believe it or not, has the perfect math. This is what you have to do in the off season. You have to keep 4, waive 2, and retire 2. There's a lot more time to answer telephone calls. For instance, you could trade Lonborg and keep Frisella. Probably aren't going to trade Fryman. You know, Barry and Brinkman, you'd entertain offers for these guys. Don't know who's going to call for them. Well, I could see Ed Brinkman going to a team who wants to emulate what Bud Harrelson, Larry Boa, Mark Belanger do to their teams, the Orioles, Mets, and the Phillies. Great defense, helps win playoff games. So I could see Ed Brinkman being sought after simply for that, for a team that has just one weakness at shortstop defensively. But anyway, this is one of the most optimistic elimination videos for a Mountain Time Zone expansion team, which includes Arizona, Colorado, and Portland. I think Vegas has the best chance to have a really good draft next year. So that's it for tonight. Hope you're enjoying these elimination videos. Thanks for checking them out, and we'll see you next time.